Let's get a divorce. I'm cheating on you. Her bizarre logic left him speechless. He was so stunned he couldn't even think of a reply. Seeing his silence, she crossed her arms. And besides, what does your little affair have to do with me? Did this woman put you up to this? Let me tell you something, Ethan, the answer is no, not happening, absolutely not. So much for the untouchable Ice Queen. She was having a full-blown meltdown. And this was Serafina Vance, the woman he had a purely transactional marriage with no feelings involved. On their wedding day, he made himself a promise. He would not, under any circumstances, fall for this beautiful, rich, impeccably dressed CEO. It was a matter of pride. He was the one who set the terms. Listen, he told her, I won't interfere in your life, and I won't get any funny ideas. You do you. We just need to keep up appearances. Fine, was her clipped, cold reply. It was exactly what he'd expected. He'd heard the rumors. After all, she was already in love with someone else. He never bothered to Google the guy's name or find out where he was. As long as he wasn't dumb enough to show up and gloat, he was golden. With his family's money, he could coast for the rest of his life, provided he never tried to actually start business. So Serafina and he began their married life as polite, distant roommates. They were just two people coexisting under the same roof. Every day, he'd offer a perfunctory morning, afternoon, or night, and that was the extent of their interaction. Serafina, in turn, would respond with a single "I see," or maybe a slight nod if she was feeling generous. Occasionally, in what he assumed was a flicker of conscience, she'd remind him about a heat wave warning or tell him to take an umbrella if it looked like rain. Are you going to the Vanguard tonight? I can have the driver take you, she asked one evening, her tone completely flat. The Vanguard was the usual spot for him and his buddies, a handful of trust fund kids with nothing better to do than burn through their inheritances. It was all harmless fun, mostly. Serafina had come with him once shortly after they got married. His friends, who had only seen her briefly at the wedding, immediately started giving him a hard time. To what do we owe the honor? Ben had slurred, a smirk on his face. Didn't think the great Serafina Vance had time to grace us mortals with her presence. Serafina pursed her lips, clearly uncomfortable with the banter. Well, she stammered, I think it's important to support my husband. She'd barely warmed her seat before her phone rang. She explained it was an emergency at the office and had to leave. Seeing the rare flicker of guilt on her face, he knew what was really up. A late-night rendezvous with the one that got away, probably. Go, he'd said, waving her off magnanimously. Work is important, she even. The second she was gone, they swarmed him, their faces lit up with gossip. Dude. Ben leaned in. Is she always that cold? Like, even at home, you know? He almost spit out his beer. How was he supposed to answer that? They were married, but they hadn't so much as held hands. Their schedules were perfectly misaligned. She was up at 6 for spin class. He rolled out of bed at 9. He was asleep by the time she got home from the office. Can we please talk about something else? He said, trying to sound bored. Ben just gave him a knowing, pitying smile. I get it, man, it's cool. We're all on the same boat with these arranged marriages. We do our own thing, but she's got a whole other life somewhere. Hey, you want to call some girls over? A guy like you. The looks, the money. You could have your pick. Yeah, man. Another friend chimed in. Live it up while you're young. Don't wait till you're old and can't get it up anymore. They were relentless, a chorus of enablers promising him the girls were clean, discreet, and professional. His resolve started to crumble. His friends were men of action. Before he knew it, 10 models were lined up in front of him. It was a dizzying sight, all legs and flawless skin. He'd specifically requested no heavy makeup, and they all had a surprisingly innocent look. His eyes landed on one in particular. I said, pointing. She was a little shy, and something about her reminded him of Serafina. The other girls laughed, disappointed. The one he'd chosen walked over, nervously tugging at the hem of her short skirt. He poured her a glass of wine. She took a delicate sip, the fragrance filling the air. Then she closed her eyes, leaned in, and moved to press her lips to his. An image of Serafina flashed in his mind, her cool, perfect face. He flinched and pushed the girl away. Never mind, he said gruffly. You can go. Ben was practically cackling. Seriously, Ethan? I pulled some strings to get you actual college students. Don't tell me you've got a problem downstairs. He shot him a death glare. You want to find out? See how much of a problem I have. He just laughed, clutching his ass and staggering away theatrically. The mood was shot. He went home. Why was he always thinking about Serafina? Was he really that much of a hopeless romantic? He stared at the wedding photo on his nightstand. She was actually smiling in it, a rare, faint curve of her lips, but looking at it now, it seemed forced. It was strange. Serafina Vance was a legend in the financial world, came from old money, a double PhD from Stanford, took over a division of her family's company, and turned it into a powerhouse. It was like she had a crystal ball. Every move she made turned out to be spectacularly right. And on top of all that, she had the kind of face that could launch 1,000 ad campaigns, even without a stitch of makeup. The only thing he couldn't figure out was why she'd married into his family. The Vances and the Blackwoods had barely moved in the same circles, and his family's fortune, while still massive, had been on a slow, steady decline for years. They had a bad habit of getting into every new industry just as the bubble was about to burst. The rumor was that her grandfather had arranged the whole thing. After running the scenario through his head 1,000 times, he'd landed on a theory. Serafina needed a respectable, stable marriage as a cover so she could carry on with her true love and secret. For him, the deal was a win-win. The alliance with the Vances was a lifeline for his family's company. The only downside was seeing Serafina's face every day. It stirred things in him he was trying to suppress, especially in the mornings when she'd be in the foyer dressed in a sharp blouse and pencil skirt, pulling on a pair of black stockings before stepping into her heels. In those moments, he finally understood how perfectly normal guys could snap and end up doing hard time. Having that walking in front of you every day, it was inhuman. No, he was getting the short end of the stick here. One day, she and her secret lover would go public, and he'd be left with nothing. He had to at least collect some interest on this investment. So, on their second anniversary, he hatched a plan. He gave the housekeeper the night off. He set up a candlelit dinner. He scattered rose petals from the front door all the way to the bedroom. It was going to be a night of seduction, a grand, sweeping, romantic gesture. The sound of the key in the lock made his heart pound against his ribs. Serafina walked in, and for a split second, her eyes lit up. He thought, "This is it, it's working." And her face hardened. "What is all this?" she asked, her voice laced with disdain. Her brow was furrowed. That was definitely not the look of someone who was pleased. The sheer force of her disapproval left him tongue-tied. She took a deep breath. "If you're done, get some rest. I'll have the housekeeper clean this up tomorrow. I have to get back to the office." And with that, she turned and walked out. She didn't come home for a month. At first, he was just embarrassed, and he was angry. Finally, a deep, weary sadness settled in. Was it so wrong to want to feel some connection with his own wife? He woke up in the middle of the night reaching for the empty space beside him in bed. That's when he made his decision. "You want a divorce?" Serafina held the papers, her voice trembling slightly. "Why?" He let out a bitter laugh. "You're seriously asking me why? We don't talk. We don't sleep in the same bed. The only thing you ever ask me is if I need money. You never once asked if I'm happy." And most importantly, he stopped himself. If he kept going, he'd be in too deep. He couldn't let her know. He couldn't let her know he'd fallen for her. His mind, for some reason, started trying to translate the phrase falling for someone to fall in love. God, what was wrong with him? Any more explaining, and he'd blurt out, "I'm in love with you." To stop himself, he grabbed the first excuse he could think of. "I'm in love with someone else." A woman as proud as Serafina would never tolerate her husband so blatantly cheating on her. This had to work. "I want to be with her," he added, twisting the knife. Silence. The air in the room grew thick and heavy. He could almost feel the storm gathering around her, see the lightning flashing in her eyes. She looked like a vengeful goddess, and he had to suppress the urge to shout some ridiculous movie line. What's wrong with his brain? "You're saying you have a mistress?" she finally asked, her voice dangerously low. He nodded. "Yes, and I don't want her to be the other woman anymore. I want to give her a real life with me, so we have to get a divorce." Her pupils dilated. Her whole body started to shake. He was about to say something to soften the blow when she pointed a trembling finger at him. "If you're having an affair, that's your problem. You break up with her. Why should I have to get a divorce? What kind of decent woman agrees to be a mistress? As long as I don't agree to this, she will always be the other woman. Divorce is not an option. Do you hear me? Absolutely not." Her eyes were red, and she looked like she was about to cry. He held out a tissue. "Hey, calm down. I know I'm the one in the wrong here, but don't just shut it down. He guided her to the sofa. Look, he said gently. If we get divorced, you'll be free to be with your real soulmate. You're in charge of the company now. Your family can't control your life anymore. Wouldn't it be better for everyone? Just as he was about to launch into a heartfelt, logical appeal, she snatched the divorce papers from his hand and ripped them to shreds. Does your replacement want my place? She hissed. She can keep dreaming. She stormed off into the bathroom, leaving him alone on the sofa, lost in thought. And then it hit him, the real reason. Over the past 2 years, the Blackwoods and Vance corporations had become deeply intertwined. They were in the middle of a critical joint venture. If they divorced now, it would send both their companies' stocks into a nosedive and crater the entire project. The financial fallout would be catastrophic. He slapped his thigh. Damn it. He'd miscalculated. Of course, she was a brilliant businesswoman. She'd seen the bottom line in an instant. For the next few days, she started coming home from work on time. She was suddenly around a lot. If he was scrolling through his phone on the couch, she'd be right there, tapping away on her laptop. If she saw he was playing a game, she pointedly looked back at her own screen. He got bored and decided to try cooking. As he stood in the kitchen, she hovered nearby, watching him like a hawk. He managed to burn the steak. It's a little charred, he said, turning to her. You want it? She looked like she was about to bite through a nail. You only offer me the food you ruin? Fine, he said, and moved to scrape the blackened mess into the trash. She lunged forward and grabbed his hand, then dumped the steak onto a plate and started tearing at it with her fingers. I thought you said you didn't want it. If she can eat your cooking, why can't I? He had a feeling she was picturing the non-existent other woman as she chewed on that burnt piece of meat. Weirdly, it was kind of attractive. That night, he had just settled into bed when he felt the mattress dip beside him. He instinctively scooted away. He glanced over and met Serafina's wounded gaze. Do you hate me that much? She whispered. He quickly moved back. No, of course not. He had no idea what to say next, so he just turned off the light. In the darkness, he felt her shift closer, their arms brushing against each other. A wild part of him was praying she'd just pounce on him, and they could settle this once and for all. Instead, the night passed in total silence. When he woke up, she was gone. A note was on the nightstand. Office emergency. Wait for me. She had her life, he had his. It worked. What was his life exactly? That morning, he got a text. Ethan, it's Maya. Could we meet? Maya? Who was? Oh right, Maya Chun, the model from that night. The quiet, shy one who looked like a supermodel trying to pass for a college kid. He called her. She picked up immediately, her voice bright with excitement. Ethan, you called. I got into Columbia. I wanted to thank you. I couldn't have paid my tuition without the money you gave me. As they talked, he got the whole sad story. Gambling dad, sick mom, a family in pieces. The night at the lounge was supposed to be her first time. When he'd sent her away, she'd started to cry right there in the dim light. Please, sir, she'd begged. If you send me back, they'll keep my deposit. I won't be able to survive. So he'd paid her for the night and told Ben to make sure she got home safe. And now, just a few weeks later, she was starting an Ivy League school. She said she wanted to see him one last time before she left for the semester. How could he say no? They agreed to meet at a Starbucks. While he got there, he realized it was on the ground floor of Serafina's office building. He remembered she didn't drink coffee, so it was probably safe. Wait, why was he still thinking about that? They were getting a divorce. He pushed open the door and saw her at a table by the window. Sunlight streamed in, catching her in a halo of light. She was wearing a simple sundress, but it couldn't hide her long legs or the vibrant, youthful energy she radiated. He felt old. Ethan, what do you want to drink? My treat, she said, her cheeks flushing. He glanced at the menu and picked the cheapest thing, a plain black coffee. She shook her head quickly. Oh no, please get something else. I have 3 part-time jobs now. You don't have to get the cheap one. I feel bad enough asking you to meet me here. Her voice trailed off. He gently tapped her on the head. It's not about the money. I actually like this one, and stop with the formal stuff. It's weird. Just call me Ethan. Her eyes lit up. Really? Okay, Ethan. He smiled and nodded. But then he felt a sudden, intense prickling on the back of his neck. Ethan. He turned. It was Serafina. Her face was a thundercloud, dark and stormy. Behind her stood a few people in sharp suits, her corporate lieutenants, he guessed. His heart started hammering. He felt like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Serafina strode over to their table and leaned in, whispering fiercely in his ear, "Play along. My team is watching. Give me some face." He glanced over at their entourage. Their faces were practically screaming gossip. The second their eyes met, they all looked away. They weren't divorced yet. He couldn't blow this up. He nodded. He realized Serafina was staring daggers at Maya. This is Maya Chun," he stammered. "A friend of mine." "A friend." A triumphant, predatory smile spread across Serafina's face. She leaned forward so only the three of them could hear. "You hear that, sweetie? You're just a friend, a platonic friend. Ethan still comes home to me at night, and don't think that little schoolgirl act is fooling anyone. How much will it take for you to leave him alone?" The words hung in the air. He was stunned. Maya was horrified. She looked at this woman acting like a mother hen protecting her chick and turned beet red. I wasn't trying to fool anyone," she whispered, her eyes welling up. "I just wanted to thank Ethan." Tears started to roll down her cheeks. He couldn't stand it. "Serafina, what the hell is wrong with you? Apologize to her now." Serafina stared at him, aghast. "Ethan, can't you see what she is? She's a snake. I don't care if she's a rattlesnake. Apologize, or I'm leaving with her." "Don't know." "Fine, I'll apologize," she yelped, grabbing his arm. She turned to Maya. "I'm sorry." The words were barely out of her mouth before she seemed to reconsider. "Wait, why am I apologizing? She's trying to steal my husband. Why do I have to say I'm sorry?" Maya finally understood what was happening. She bowed her head quickly. "It's okay. It was all a misunderstanding. I should go. Bye, Ethan." She stood up and as she passed, discreetly pressed a small box into his hand. After Maya left, Serafina's 5 employees were still lingering, looking like they wished they had popcorn. He sat down, trying to act casual. "I thought you were buried in work. What are you doing drinking coffee?" For some reason, Serafina's mood seemed to have lifted. "Finished early. Thought I'd treat the team." She waved them over. "Order whatever you want, it's on me. My husband and I need to talk for a minute, so you can just hang out." Her team started gushing. "You and Mr. Blackwood are so cute, Ms. Vance. Thank you so much. We won't hold back." He shook his head. "Don't thank me, I'm not paying." Then he stopped. Serafina's money was technically their marital property, so in a way, he was paying. "We're so jealous, Mr. Blackwood," one of the women said. "Ms. Vance talks about her husband at the office all the time." "All right, that's enough," Serafina said, shooing them away with a smile. "Go order before you wear out your welcome." But he was stuck on what the employee had said. Serafina talked about him at work. No, wait. She'd said Serafina talks about her husband. But the rumor was she was in love with someone else. Her husband could be a code word for him. His good mood evaporated. He stared at Serafina. "You brought the guy you're in love with into your company?" She looked completely taken aback. He must have hit a nerve. He had someone look into it. He knew about her private conversations, how she told her inner circle she was in love. She was a notorious loner who rarely made friends. The only person she'd ever been close to was a guy in college. He'd heard she'd even been his angel investor for a startup. They'd won some national entrepreneurship competition together. He'd even seen a photo of them, a handsome, clean-cut kid who looked great next to her. If her grandfather hadn't forced her to marry him, they'd probably be married by now. The thought soured everything. Even if she was talking about him at work, it was probably just for show, a way to add some spice to their secret affair. He stood up abruptly. "Serafina, that's going too far." She blinked, then clasped her hands together like a penitent child. "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Her quick apology disarmed him, and he sat back down. "What exactly were you wrong about?" she asked timidly. "Ethan, I swear I haven't brought anyone into the company. Besides, aren't you the one who's cheating?" She glanced in the direction Maya had gone, her brow furrowing. "Was it her? Did that girl tell you lies about me? I knew I shouldn't have let her go." She turned back to him, her expression pitiful. "Do you really like her that much? You believe everything she says, but you won't believe me." She closed her eyes as if making a painful, momentous decision. When she opened them again, they were red-rimmed. "Fine," she said, her voice shaking. "I can compromise, but I have to be the first wife." He choked, spraying a mouthful of coffee across the table. What was that? What she thought this was about? Was he giving off some kind of polygamous vibe? Wait, it wasn't the worst idea he'd ever. No, stop it. His plan was to use a fake affair to get a divorce, not to audition candidates for a harem. Something was very, very wrong here. Looking at Serafina, who was now nodding to herself as if she'd solved a complex equation, a wild theory began to form in his mind. Serafina, he said slowly, the person you're in love with, it isn't me, is it? A blush crept from her cheeks all the way to the tips of her ears. She looked down and gave a tiny, shy nod. The world screeched to a halt. The internet forums on how to get your wife to divorce you had definitely not mentioned this as a possible outcome. He was about to press for more details when her phone rang, a jarring intrusion. After a brief, clipped conversation, she looked at him with genuine regret. Honey, something came up at the office. I have to go. Go home and wait for me. She stood, her professional mask snapping back into place, and strode out of the Starbucks with purpose. He beat a hasty retreat himself. His brain was overloaded. He needed to go home and process. He had several questions. First, when did Serafina start having feelings for him? Second, if she liked him, why did she react with such anger to his anniversary surprise? And third, was she still in contact with that handsome college boyfriend? To get answers, he decided to wait for her. And while he waited, he recreated the scene from their anniversary. Candlelit dinner, rose petals strewn across the floor leading to the bedroom. He even put on the same suit. The living room was dark, the candlelight flickering. When Serafina opened the door, she froze. Then she slowly took off her blazer, leaving her in just her silk blouse and skirt. She stepped onto the path of rose petals, her stockinged feet silent on the floor. Her eyes were glittering with a strange light. She wasn't angry this time. This time, he saw a raging fire. Ethan, she said, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across her face. You asked for this. He didn't realize the gravity of her words until the next morning when he had to use both hands to haul himself out of bed. The bed was still littered with crushed rose petals, but they were now mixed with something else. A few small bright red stains on the white sheets. Something was very wrong. No woman's first time was supposed to be that intense. Was she on something? Adrenaline? Thump. The bedroom door opened. Serafina walked in, moving a little stiffly but with a radiant smile on her face. Honey, you're awake. Are you hungry? I made breakfast. As he picked at the perfectly cooked scrambled eggs and toast, he looked at Serafina, who was sipping her orange juice like a queen surveying her domain. Last time I did the whole candlelit dinner thing, you were furious, he said. What changed last night? She dabbed her lips with a napkin. I thought you'd been corrupted by some other woman. You never used to be so romantic, and honestly, I'm not very exciting. I don't know any of the tricks those other women do. It sort of made sense. He wasn't usually one for grand gestures. That night must have been a fluke, a surge of testosterone. But he still had questions. He looked her straight in the eye. I heard you were in love with someone in college. What was that about? Are you still in touch? Are you trying to have it both ways? Even though last night was memorable, I wasn't interested in being part of a love triangle. If she was just playing games, I still wanted the divorce. Who are you talking about? She asked, looking genuinely confused. Under the table, he tried to nudge her with his foot, but her leg was so smooth in its silk stocking that his foot just slipped. It probably looked like he was trying to be cute. He stopped and cleared his throat. Don't play dumb. I know you were all over that one guy in college. She frowned, thinking. Then her eyes lit up in recognition. Oh, you mean Marcus Bell? Of course. The name matched the intel he'd gotten. The truth was out. His heart sank. Seeing his crestfallen expression, she panicked. No, it's not what you think, she said, standing up. I never liked him. Who's been feeding you these lies? Realizing her words weren't convincing enough, she rushed to his side and held up her hand as if taking an oath. Honey, don't misunderstand. He just had a good head for business, so I helped him out a little. That's all, I swear. Besides, he's married now. And you know he's married? His sharp question made her look like she was about to cry again. His wife is my executive assistant. She's on maternity leave right now. That's why I've been working so much overtime. It's true. She pulled out her phone and opened her texts, trying to show him their conversations. He couldn't be bothered. He turned his head away. She just followed his head with her phone, shoving the screen in his face. Seeing how earnest and desperate she was, he finally let out a sigh. Okay, I believe you. She got up from her half-kneeling position and went back to her breakfast. After a few bites, she suddenly looked at him with suspicion. Did you have me investigated? Crap, she knew. Serafina hated anyone prying into her private life. He waved his hands frantically. No, honey, listen. Let me prevaricate. Let me explain. She leaned forward and pressed a finger to his lips. Hush. Just admit it. You like me more, don't you? No matter how wild the other women are, you'll always have a place for me in your heart. They're just passing ships in the night. I'm your final destination. She was getting carried away, a goofy, lovesick grin spreading across her face. Seeing her spiraling into a rom-com fantasy, he knew he had to set the record straight. Actually, he said, I wasn't cheating. I thought you didn't like me, so I made it up as an excuse to get a divorce. I was afraid if I stayed, I'd fall too deeply in love with you to ever get out. The second the words left his mouth, he cringed at how cheesy they sounded. Serafina stared at him, dumbfounded, for a full 30 seconds. Honey, you really like me. Looking at her shocked expression, he was finally certain. The person she was in love with, she told her friends about, it really was him. As the realization dawned on her, she started tearing his toast into little pieces and feeding them to him. And then, right there in the living room, she began to put his youthful stamina to the test once again. After they finally cleared the air, Serafina was like a different person. When he went out with his friends, she'd tag along, smiling sweetly and fielding all their questions. Ms. Vance, aren't you usually swamped with work? How do you have time to hang out? Being with my husband is my most important job. Wow, Serafina, you're suddenly so clingy with Ethan. Isn't it normal for a wife to be clingy with her husband? Our Ethan is a great catch. Of course he is, and I'm going to take good care of him. Everything I have is his. It got so gushy, he couldn't even listen, but in front of his friends, he finally felt like he could stand a little taller. The tables had well and truly turned. Her phone rang. He knew it was work. Go on, he said. Go and come back soon. She planted a loud kiss on his cheek and drove off. The moment she was gone, Ben leaned in with a sly grin. The missus is gone. Should we call some girls to liven things up? He just shook his head. You guys have fun, I'm heading home. He already felt like he was walking on clouds these last few days. Any more fun, and he might actually float away. As he was leaving the club, his phone buzzed with a text. Ethan, help me. It was followed by a location pin. It was from Maya. They weren't close, but he couldn't just ignore it. And in a weird way, she was the reason Serafina and he had finally sorted things out. He got in his car and sent Serafina a text. Going to check something out. Be home later. He forked her the location pin but didn't mention Maya. The address led him to a dilapidated auto repair shop in some industrial corner of Queens. The air was thick with the smell of mildew. The place had clearly been abandoned for years. Maya, he called out, keeping his voice low. Had her dad's creditors caught up with her? Silence. He pulled out his phone and called her. The second she answered, she screamed, Ethan, run. The quiet was shattered. Figures emerged from the shadows. Keep an eye on the girl, a gruff voice barked. This is Serafina Vance's husband. Grab him. For menacing-looking guys started closing in on him. Hearing Serafina's name, he figured this was about business, one of her rivals, probably. Facing down 4 beefy thugs, he wasn't exactly confident, even with a few years of boxing classes under his belt. Before they could react, he lunged, taking one of them out with a quick, hard shot. The other 3 immediately grew cautious, grabbing pieces of wood and a steel pipe, forming a triangle around him. He snatched a broken plank from the floor to defend himself. In the chaos of the fight, he heard Maya scream, Watch out! He felt a rush of air behind him. Before he could dodge, he heard a sickening thud and a crunch. But it wasn't his bone. He felt no pain. He whipped around and saw Serafina. She was standing behind him, her arm raised to block a vicious blow that had been meant for his head. You touch my husband, she snarled, her eyes blazing red, seemingly oblivious to pain. And I will kill you. Seeing the pipe connect with her arm, he saw red, too. He stopped defending and just attacked, a wild, desperate flurry of blows. The next thing he knew, the sound of sirens was echoing through the garage. His legs gave out, and he collapsed. Everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, the first thing he smelled was antiseptic. Everything was a sterile, glaring white. Serafina was asleep in a chair beside his bed. Her head was bandaged, and one of her arms was in a cast. He shifted slightly, and her eyes snapped open. Her voice was thick with tears. Ethan, honey, you're awake. Doctor, doctor. After a thorough checkup, it turned out he had nothing more than some bruises and scrapes. Serafina, on the other hand, was seriously injured. Both of her arms were fractured. One was in a heavy cast, the other in a splint. You're hurt way worse than I am, he said, exasperated. Go lie down. She shook her head stubbornly. No, I have to watch you. Watch me do what? I'm not going to run away. I was so scared, she whispered. If I'd been a minute later, I can't even imagine. She explained that the men weren't after Maya, they were after them. Bed 7 needs a new 4, a cheerful voice announced. A young nurse in pink scrubs came in to change his bag. This one's an antibiotic. Watching her move, he couldn't help but feel a little parched. His throat was dry. He swallowed hard, a purely reflexive action, but Serafina saw it. A jealous fire ignited in her eyes. For a second, he thought she was going to launch herself at the poor nurse, but her cast made it impossible, thank God. A little while later, the doctor came in for his rounds. He gave him a quick once-over and then turned his attention to Serafina's arms. As he examined her, she kept shooting him looks so smoldering they could have melted glass. Looking at her and her designer blouse that now had several holes in it, he raised a weak hand. Excuse me, doctor, will this injury affect our, marital activities? The doctor looked at him, confused, then his face cleared with understanding. Oh, you mean intercourse? Yes, absolutely. It's a strenuous activity, could easily cause the fractures to shift. And I have to say, as a husband, you should be more concerned about your wife's recovery than that. He turned to Serafina with a stern face. You heard the man. Doctor's orders. Her face fell. Fine. After the doctor left, she seemed to soften. Honey, she said quietly, I'm so sorry. All I ever did was work, make money, but now I see all my money is useless. He gave her a flat look. What do you mean, your money? Where did you get any money? She was confused. From my company, of course. He didn't give her a second to think. And who are you earning that money for? For you. So how did money you earned for me become your money? Because I gave it all to you. Why would you need to give me my own money? Well then, I won't give it to you. Why would you withhold my own money from me? Her brain seemed to short-circuit. She made a move to lunge at him. He quickly held up his hands. Whoa. Doctor's bed rest. We need to rest. Word count check. 618 words. Matches original follow-up text. Name and pronoun consistency. All consistent. Formatting. Single paragraph. No extra characters.